In early 2023, Google eliminated 12,000 jobs. At Disney, 7,000 roles were cut overnight. When Elon Musk took over Twitter, he ordered managers to rank their staff and fire the bottom 10% across every department. This is the modern CEO playbook. Cut the fat, replace employees with contractors, and prioritize quarterly earnings above all else. The executives leading these major companies learned this strategy from Jack Welch. During his tenure at General Electric, Welch established the template for the ruthless, metric-obsessed CEO. But Welch didn't invent this philosophy in a vacuum. He derived his strategies directly from Peter Drucker, the universally respected father of management. Drucker spent his career designing a framework to protect human dignity. Welch repurposed those same principles to build a system of aggressive cost-cutting that helped hollow out the American middle class. Growing up in Vienna between the World Wars, Drucker watched as individuals were swallowed by massive political and social systems. He saw the rise of totalitarianism and spent the rest of his life looking for an organizational defense against it. He concluded that management was a liberal art, meant to give people autonomy and responsibility. He believed that if a company gave its workers a sense of dignity and purpose, it became a bulwark against the forces that stripped people of their freedom. Drucker's ultimate baseline was that the economy exists to serve society. He taught that a corporation's primary purpose is to serve and elevate the social fabric, using profit only to sustain that mission. For decades, General Electric operated under a system called welfare capitalism. The company focused on lifelong careers and corporate loyalty, spending over a third of its revenue directly on worker pay and health benefits. This approach turned GE into an icon in every American household. It built a stable middle class by ensuring that as the company grew, the prosperity of its workforce grew with it. When Jack Welch took over in 1981, he asked Peter Drucker for guidance. Drucker suggested a policy of planned abandonment. He told Welch to evaluate every business unit and exit any industry that didn't make his employees excited or passionate to be there. Welch stripped the human emotion out of that advice. He translated passion into a cold mathematical cutoff line. If a division wasn't ranked first or second in its global market, Welch killed it or sold it off. He then applied this same market share logic to his people. Welch instituted the vitality curve, isolating the bottom 10% of his staff for termination every single year. It forced managers to fire workers not based on poor performance, but to satisfy an arbitrary annual quota. By removing the human element from Drucker's advice, Welch turned a tool meant for organizational focus into a perpetual machine for mass layoffs. Drucker also taught a principle called the front room versus the back room. He advised companies to focus on their core competencies, their front room, and let specialists handle secondary tasks like cafeteria services or printing. Welch used this concept to pioneer modern mass outsourcing. He began closing down American factories and replacing lifelong, unionized staff with cheap contractors and overseas labor, arguing that manufacturing itself was no longer GE's core focus. Drucker watched this mutation in horror. He spent his final years criticizing the ballooning of CEO pay to hundreds of times that of the average worker, calling the practice socially unforgivable and an invitation to mismanagement. Under Welch, GE pivoted away from building physical products. He transformed GE Capital into a massive financial engine, using international financing and heavy stock buybacks to artificially pump the company's share price quarter after quarter. Welch decoupled the corporation's growth from the welfare of its workforce. GE became a machine for extracting wealth for shareholders, regardless of the impact on the people who actually built its products. For 20 years, Welch's strategies made him a celebrity. GE appeared invincible, hitting its earnings targets with robotic precision and making Welch one of the wealthiest CEOs in history. But the pressure to hit those numbers every quarter had pushed GE Capital deep into high-risk subprime mortgage lending. When the 2008 crash hit, these fragile debts exposed the company to a catastrophic collapse. GE stock fell 42%, and it required a $3 billion bailout from Warren Buffett just to stay afloat. The company never recovered. GE lost its title as the world's most valuable firm and was eventually split into 3 pieces and sold off for parts. Managing a company purely for short-term stock bumps eventually guarantees its destruction. When an organization loses its human purpose, it becomes a house of cards waiting for the next market correction to blow it over. Drucker often compared what he called the beautiful company, which exists to serve a human purpose, to the ugly company, which exists only to chase numbers. He warned that treating workers as disposable assets destroys the very social fabric that allows a business to function. Automation and outsourcing might boost a quarterly report, but they can't build a sustainable society. Drucker left all leaders with one defining question: what do you want to be remembered for? Drucker argued that a leader's legacy is measured by the social utility of their work.
Efficiency and profit are tools for survival, but the goal is to build something that elevates the people within it and serves the world beyond it.